What do you make of the identities of the three suspects at this moment identified by the Turkish side? The three suspected terrorists are respectively of Russian, Uzbek, and Kyrgyz origins. What do you make of this fact?
After the identification of the nationalities of the terrorists, it is clear that this is typical Daesh or ISIL organization activity. This is not the Russian nationality, we can say the Chechen nationality from the Kakavuz vilayet of the Daesh, and the others two coming from the Central Asia to Turkey. They're also the part of the Daesh Central Asian vilayets or the part of organization.
I see.
This is important. This is important to be chosen that three nationalities, different nationalities. It is not only for the terrorist organization's own security, but it's a kind of message to the world and to the Turkish government as well. And more of this to the Russian government as well. Recently, as you know, the Turkish and the Russian relations coming a little bit more dense than the past for 6 months nowadays.
I see. Okay. Thank you for your analysis. Let's go to Dr. Aliriza in Washington, D.C. Do you agree with your counterpart in Turkey when he's providing analysis regarding Turkey actually is the victim standing with many others, including Russia, by just the identity of these three suspected terrorists? What exactly do you think are the reasons and motives could be behind it?
Well, the fact that two of the attackers were from Central Asia and one from the Caucasus underlines what I think everybody's known for some time, which is that volunteers have come in from different parts of the world, from Europe, in addition to the two areas that I mentioned. They've gone into Syria through Turkey, most of them, unfortunately. They've received training, they've engaged in all kinds of brutal activities, and now they're being sent out to Turkey and beyond to engage in this kind of operation. Now, it might be that they're finding it difficult to get to Europe to do the kind of things that they were doing in Brussels and Paris, and Turkey is an easy target. I'm not sure that there's something that requires planning like this would be in response to the rapprochement with Russia or with Israel, which was the previous day. I think it may be more to do with the pressure that's being brought to bear on ISIS in northern Syria, particularly by the Syrian Kurds, backed by the United States.
Mr. Yan, both of the other two panelists have pointed their fingers at ISIL, as well as the Turkish government. But at this moment, we see ISIL, unlike in many other occasions in any other parts of the world, has not claimed the responsibilities so far for this specific attack. ISIL neither had claimed the responsibilities for any of the previous attacks which was accused of being done by ISIL in Turkey. What do you make of this fact?
This is very different from the terrorist actions by the ISIS in the Western countries, where the ISIS always claimed the responsibilities for the attack. I think behind this, there are at least two calculations by the ISIS. The first is to incite the internal confrontations in Turkey. ISIS may want to use this as to mislead the general public and the Turkish government to blame the PKK so as to use it as an excuse to strengthen the crackdown on the PKK. And PKK is also the enemy of ISIS. If this happens, this will benefit the ISIS. And also, the Turkey is used as a major support base by ISIS. It is used for finance, for recruitment, for logistic support. So ISIS won't be too silly to claim the responsibility, so may isolate it from the general people that support the ISIS in Turkey.
I see. Dr. Aliriza, how strong was the support among those in Turkey for ISIL, at least traditionally? And secondly, of course, as many of you mentioned, Turkey was being used and volunteered to be used to foreign fighters as a transit to go to other parts of the Middle East, including to Syria, and Turkey was encouraging that until 1 year ago after several rounds of terrorist attacks. So what do you make of Turkey's position now? Is it really determined to fight against the terrorism, including ISIL?
Well, the Turkish priority from the beginning of the Syrian civil war was for President Assad to be pushed out by the opposition, and it gave support to the opposition groups. Now, when it began in 2011, 2012, there was no ISIS. So the volunteers, the jihadists who went through Turkey, ended up in different groups. Eventually, ISIS became strong, began to be dominant over the other groups, and then emerged as a threat, not just in Syria, but also in Turkey and beyond. Now, the problem for Turkey is that it has been very slow to come to terms with the reality that ISIS is a threat to itself. You're absolutely right. Most of the foreign fighters, almost all of them maybe, have come through Turkey. But it's not only the foreign fighters that's a problem for Turkey, it's also the fact that there are Turkish volunteers who've gone from different parts of Turkey. One hears stories of the province of Adıyaman providing many volunteers for ISIS. So they have adherents within Turkey. And also, let's remember the specific problem that Turkey has. There is a gap of 98 kilometers between the Kurdish-controlled areas in northern Syria, through which ISIS has been going in and out of Turkey. There's a town called Jarablus, which is in their hands, literally which is in ISIS's hand, literally on the border. If Turkey does indeed recognize ISIS as a threat, finally, then it should move against that gap, close it off completely, and perhaps with the support of its allies, move on the town of Jarablus and other areas in northern Syria, which are controlled by ISIS.
Right. We've seen over the past few years the number of terrorist attacks in Turkey have been going ups and down. Let's take a look at some of these numbers. The rate marked this time 5th bombing attack in Istanbul this year. Suicide attacks are on the rise in Turkey. Look at that number. We saw very few suicide attacks before 2014, all of which had low death tolls. But since 2015, things have changed dramatically, and the map shows some of the deadliest suicide attacks inside Turkey since last year, with the deadliest having a death toll of more than even 100. That is really a dramatic number over there. So the question is, Mr. Bicer, is the government of Erdogan really determined to go against ISIL? Or this is pretty much expressed verbally. If really against ISIL, is Turkey willing to stop being the transit of the so-called foreign fighters, even though that probably means that there would not be enough people fight against a Turkish enemy, which is the Syrian regime? So which is the bigger priority, Mr. Bicer?
Yes, it is a tough question, really, but it is easy to answer it, because Turkey declared several times Turkey as a state will against all kinds of terror globally, regionally, in Turkey or outside Turkey, because Turkey suffered from terror for more than 30 years. One of the threat now may be Daesh or ISIL, but let me remind you the last year's results of the terror in Turkey. What about the PKK live bombings in Ankara 2 times, 3 times? And Turkey is sincere to being against the terror globally, but first we have to definitely clearly define what is terrorist, who is terrorist.
All right.
This definitely needs clarification, because if you're a partner, strategic partner or ally, there is no understanding. I don't understand how is it happen. You can help one of the Turkish main enemy fighting against the Turkey, YPG, PKK, both are the same for Turkey.
All right.
Several times declared that to the allied nations. How you can help them? How you can arm them in the region, even for your national interests?
I see.
So please let me first. We have to define who is terrorist and trust to each other.
Okay, Dr. Aliriza, we all know from the day one how to define terrorism, how to define who terrorists are, have been a political flexible terms for different situations. I'm not saying that we should subscribe to what Mr. Bicer just said, but what I'm asking here is, when you have PKK, which has been organized by, which has been recognized by both the United States and Turkey as terrorist groups, and yet not by many other countries as the same type. And when you have ISIL being recognized by countries all over the world as terrorist groups, what do you make of the priorities that Turkey is having right now in its drive of fight against terrorism? What do you think should be the priority?
Look, I think it's very clear. Turkey is facing twin threats from the PKK, which it's been fighting on and off since 1984, and also from ISIS. Now, the attack on the Istanbul airport, according to the Prime Minister and to the Interior Minister, was most likely done by ISIS, even though they have not acknowledged it. Clearly, this is a terrorist act. Clearly, according to the Turkish government, it was done by ISIS. Therefore, Turkey should move against ISIS even more strongly than before, while making the point to its allies that it's concerned about the fact that the United States in particular is cooperating with the Syrian Kurds, the YPG, which is linked to the PKK, because the United States, like most other Western countries, is giving the priority to defeating ISIS. Look, the capital of ISIS is called Raqqa. It has a line stretching to Manbij, which is now being attacked by the YPG. And from Manbij, we understand that terrorists have come into Turkey. It's very clear. Turkey should focus on the immediacy of the ISIS threat, while continuing to say that it's concerned about PKK terrorism.
All right. There are a lot of different priorities struggle over there. Mr. Yan, do you agree with the other two panelists? Do you see Turkey as a very serious fighter against the terrorism, even the root of the terrorism and the source of those terrorists?
Yes. I think the Turkey will strengthen its crackdown on PKK. At the same time, maybe in the near future, ISIS may become the #1 priority for the Turkey. Turkey may tighten the control on the border and may bombing the sites belongs to ISIS in Syria and Iraq. And also Turkey may seek more cooperation with the international community, especially the United States, the Europe, and the Iraq, and also the Middle Eastern Muslim countries.